Flying Ninja Squirrel. Ha. In association with Vanishing Kitty. Or is that a pressed kitty? I've never quite gotten that one.
Pressed.
And hello, all you folks out there in YouTube land. Lord Crocker Squirrel here with the lovely kitty.
Hello, everybody.
And a special guest today, Devin from the IndieBros.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing? What was your role on the? What exactly was your role on the Eximius project?
Eximius. Okay. So they came to us a couple months ago to do some of the marketing for their what was it? Their tournament, I believe. They came to us a couple months ago. And then this whole thing happened with their rogue publisher, right? They came forward with the rogue publisher, and so my boss Eric drew me in and asked me basically to look over their stuff, like talk to them about like what they could do, right? Because they came forward, now they're getting money, but it's like, what do we do next? They had the idea of doing a GoFundMe. I've run a successful GoFundMe before. It was for a personal thing, like a friend of mine. I started a GoFundMe to raise money for him, and so I looked over it with them, and we basically just like hashed out exactly how they wanted to do it. And that's basically been my role so far, is being both like their kind of GoFundMe manager, and also being a support for them, because this is really, I mean, this is a very stressful situation for anyone.
Oh, I'm sure.
So like checking emails, like making sure that they're like, they know that we're like here and that we're here to help them. So.
Well, on top of that, 3 months worth of sales with no pay, that could be stressful. I can imagine how that would be stressful. We talked the last time we were on. We talked to Jeremy about that.
Yeah.
Oh, and Eric is a familiar name around here. He's been on this with us twice. So.
Yeah. Eric was actually my in to IndieBros. I knew him from just like my regular life, and he brought me in last July. So July of 2017 is when I was brought into IndieBros through him.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I should be asking him for a job. No. I kid. All right. So let's see what. Okay. So we have some idea of where you are in this in all of this and how you got there. What can you tell us about your side of the Eximius thing? How did that all come down?
How did it all come down? So you mean like how the publisher ended up in this situation, or
how? Well, I know we have an idea of how the developer wound up in this situation.
Developer, yeah.
The publisher, on the other hand, he's a dick. That's my personal opinion.
I agree with you on that one. He's not a nice person. Like, do you wanna go through like the story? Do you want to go through?
Well, what the developers contacted the IndieBros, and what's the story and what you are doing for them?
Okay. So the GoFundMe is what we're helping with. We're helping with marketing going forward. Because if you're, I know you guys have had Eric on before, but just to reiterate for any new viewers, I work for a company called the IndieBros. And the IndieBros is kind of like a halfway publishing house. We don't like to call ourselves publishers. Because what we do is sort of supply the role of a publisher for any given studio, for any given independent studio, but we don't ask for any of your intellectual property, and we're contractors. So we go on your books as contractors. You pay us rather than us be a publisher and give you money to do what you need to do. And mainly what that consists of is not like helping with the games, because for the most part, when developers come to us, they have all the expertise that they need in order to like ship the game out. And in fact, the Ammobox studio guys are actually like, they're a relatively large team, and they have a lot of experience doing this kind of stuff. It might be their first project as Ammobox, but they definitely have a lot of like industry veterans in there. And so when you get a team like that, what they're looking for is they're looking for someone to do the marketing, because as anyone will tell you that works in marketing, marketing is just as much about the people that you know as well as your skill level. So we've been accumulating industry contacts for 3 years now. So we're a name that people recognize. We're a name that has like a consistent track record. So someone will come to us and they'll ask us for help with marketing because we've had experience in marketing in the past, but we also know how to get your name onto places, right? So the reason that Ammobox initially went with the game wall was because they needed a little extra capital in order to finish the game. But the game wall also promised them that they do a fair deal of their marketing, because you can't just like, it's really hard to bring in like a whole marketing department into your studio, because they're basically like an entirely separate company almost. And Gamewall didn't pay them. Gamewall didn't do any of the marketing that they promised them. So they came to us to help with the marketing a little bit. And now they've come back to us after their tournament to sort of get them set up with these next steps, kind of. So that's where we come in. We're a marketing vehicle for them for the foreseeable future.
Okay. All right. So let's get how much more. I don't know how much more into detail you can take. You can take the whole story. Where am I going with that, Kitty?
Do you want to just talk about the like what exactly would happen? I mean, I've alluded to a little bit of it, but do we want to just go step by step as to what happened with?
That was actually what I was looking for. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start from the beginning. So as I said before, Ammobox Studio, they are a publishing team. Sorry, they are a developer who is based out of Malaysia. This is their first game kind of coming together. But they're not like noobs when it comes to making a game. Eximius is a relatively complex game. It's an FPS RTS hybrid, and their goal was to make a new esport, right? So they have like a team together. They've been developing it for 8 years, and what happened was that the CEO of the company had a deal with a ton of like some single investors, right? So just like really rich people that he knew, or like friends or family that like had money. He asked to invest in this company so that he could get it off the ground.
Just to help.
And then he also had a deal on the table with a larger indie publisher. They don't list a larger indie publisher because they ended up pulling out a couple months before they were set to release, which happens sometimes. It isn't always a guaranteed. I don't think that they hold any ill will towards that big indie publisher. It just seemed like, you know, it was just like a business thing. I don't think that it doesn't sound like they're angry at them or whatever. So they're a 10-man team, and they sort of decided like, well, okay, we do need these other aspects, right? We have the money, we have the people to make this game, but we also need like maybe a little bit of extra capital, right? A little bit of just extra help to make sure that we can get our game out the door. And also, we're wanting someone to deal in the publishing, like the big publishing aspects of it, right? Getting the game on Steam, making sure that the game is like known to consumers, right? All the marketing stuff. So they signed with this guy called The Game Wall. He's a UK-based publisher, and we're pretty much sure that it's just the one guy. And
well, it sounds like to me.
Yeah. So, like, you know, it's really easy to look at the Game Wall's. It's like what they've published on Steam and also their website, which a ton of people have gone and looked through, and see, oh, it's just like some, you know, crappy publisher, and they don't have any real games and all this different sorts of stuff. But that isn't what it looks like in private business and behind closed doors. So this guy, this UK publisher, he had a little bit of money. He offered them money to help finish the game. He said that he could like handle all the marketing. He gave them a really, really nice contract, right? He made up this whole contract, and it laid out exactly what they were expected to do, exactly what he was expected to do, and when, and like who is held responsible if things go wrong, right? So if you're Ammobox and you're looking at this clearly well thought out legal document that seems really fair for both sides, and he says, I can do this for you, and you're sort of like, well, we don't really have a lot of other options, it makes sense to sign with this guy. I mean, they had their reservations, clearly, because he's a little bit of like an unknown quantity, but they went over it with their legal advice, right? The CEO went over the contract with their legal advice. Dude said, their lawyer said, this looks good. This looks like he's on the up and up. Like there's nothing really missing in this contract that causes any red flags. So I say sign. So they did. And then came their launch date, which was September 27th. And that's when they launched on early access. And they wanted to get in on early access because, you know, they're trying to be like an esports title. And as an esports title, you want feedback from your players that you can, you know, really know what they're looking for coming forward. It also just means that like there's a little bit of time to really like make sure that the game is like perfect and how you want it before really releasing like the 1.0 when you get like a second round of buzz, right? So they launch, and immediately after launching is when they start getting some weird stuff from their publisher. Broken promises. He said that he would do marketing. He didn't. He said that he would be able to help them a little bit. He didn't. And they just sort of realized that like they you know, because you're a developer, you're not on the side of the marketing vehicle, right? So you just release the game and you sit in your office and you work on the game and you try to make sure that you have like a good face for the company, and you aren't really looking at like who's covering the game yet, right? Like you aren't looking at like what all the marketing people are doing. And so they sort of started to realize that this guy was just sort of sitting on their game, that he like released it silently and didn't tell anyone about it and wasn't doing what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, I think
so. Go ahead.
First I heard of it was when when Eric sent me a copy over.
Yeah. And that's pretty common for indie games like nowadays, right? They get stealth released and maybe you hear about them and maybe you don't, and like the like really high tier ones rise to the top. But what this guy was like promising like a little bit of buzz, right? A little bit of publication. And they just weren't getting it. They were just absolutely like buried under the Steam release window.
Yeah.
We all know that, you know, Steam releases 5 trillion games a day, and it's hard to get noticed.
Well, on top of that, at the end of September, the early part of October, for a game like that, it's just not going to work. Because you've got all the major stuff coming out within a few weeks. They call it Broketober for a reason.
Yeah. I think that might be a little bit a part of it. But it was selling. It was selling a little bit. It wasn't like doing super gangbusters, but it was selling. The developers did see that people were buying the game. People were hearing about it. People were talking about it. People were buying. Because, you know, you tell someone that you have an RTS FPS hybrid, they're easily going to perk up. It's an interesting concept. You want to know how it's done. It's not really done all that often. So people are like looking into it, you know.
And with this game being the only exception, I've never seen it done well.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do. Yeah, and I guess we'll never know about StarCraft Ghost. So I guess that's the only other game I can really think of that might have been able to be good.
StarCraft Ghost is Half-Life 3, and we both know it.
Oh yeah, it's never coming. It's absolutely never coming out. I think Blizzard has pretty much said it's never coming out. But they were setting up for their Halloween event. You know, they're doing regular dev stuff. They're trying to have fun with it. You know, they're trying to do holiday themed stuff, and they're trying to do like get consistent updates out for the game. And by the time that they get ready for their October event, they sort of really realize that their publisher, Big Wall from UK, is really not doing anything at all. And in fact, is sitting on the money that they've made. Part of their negotiation was that the publisher would be in charge of paying them, right? So the publisher is the publisher puts their name on Steam, right? He's the guy that has the in with Steam. He's like, hey, here are these guys. I'm a known quantity. I've published onto your platform before. So here are these guys, and now they're on Steam. But because it was under his name, because it was under his company, he's the one that all the revenue goes to.
Right.
And they were realizing that this guy just like wasn't sending over the money that he was getting from Steam at all, right? It wasn't just like, oh, he's taking a really big cut that wasn't part of the contract and giving us a little bit, as in he was taking all of the money from Steam and giving them absolutely nothing. So they sort of got to this point where they're doing this Halloween update, and they're just like, their mindset right now is just like, keep working on the game, keep making it better, keep doing whatever, and we'll work this stuff out like eventually.
No. That's the wrong answer.
Yeah, I mean, maybe for I think that like hindsight being 2020, perhaps. But he was responding to their emails a lot at this time. Like, they would come to him with problems, and he was still very responsive. So they wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, and that, like, you know, maybe he's just like having problems or something on his end. But he's maintaining consistent contact with them, so they're not super worried until it gets to be the end of October and they realize that they aren't getting paid at all. And so they can't give salaries to their employees, which sucks. But also they can't run their servers. So they haven't gone public with any of these problems yet, right? Because you don't want to go public with something unless you like are really sure about it, right? Unless you're like really sure that this dude is a scumbag. because you might like burn bridges, and then like what are you gonna do about it, right?
Probably
so
not
they're
a lot.
trying to.
Probably not a lot.
Yeah.
Go
so
hide in the
they're
corner
trying
someplace.
to. Yeah, they're trying to give them benefit of the doubt, right? And they end up in this situation where people are complaining about how they have a lack of player base because they weren't right. They don't have a really active player base because no one marketed their game, and they're like concerned about how like the price got readjusted in this time, and like they can't do anything about that if their publisher is just a lame duck, right? They are taking the brunt force of all of this like bad press and all of this like bad attention from their fans, and there's nothing they can really do about it.
Right.
So they decided that they basically have two choices. One is to keep being silent, and to just like keep the game alive and
Hope
like
hell.
yeah, just like power through and like continue to go in debt and keep the game alive and just like hope that if they make the best possible game that they can, that it'll be successful. And the second one, which was more conservative, is to cut losses, shut down the server, right? Shut down some of the servers, cut some of their employees.
Which they really don't want to do the size they are.
Yeah, and save some of their money for a legal action, right? To take the money to take the rest of the money that they had, and basically just put it all into legal fees so that they can go forward with this like lawsuit against their publisher to try and get the money back, right? And they decided that choice one was the best option, that they were going to go into debt and power through, and keep the game maintained, while in the background start to come up with next steps as to how to get their game back from this publisher, which is the better side for like the consumer, right? But it's also, it's very stressful, right? You're going even deeper into debt. You're no one's leaving yet, but you still, I mean, you're burning more and more money.
Well, he said Jeremy told us they actually had a couple of months where they could actually just do that.
Yeah, and they did, but they did have a couple of months where they could do that. They had enough money saved up where they could just like burn it for a little bit, which is why they decided to do this, and really start to go forward and like try to figure out how they can get their game back, how they can get their money back, whatever. And they come up on their winter tournament, which they had planned, and this was one of the things that their publisher was supposed to help them with. He was supposed to help them, set up a prize pool. He was supposed to help them set up streaming stuff, like getting personalities in there. He was supposed to help them like organize the whole damn thing. And publisher's a lame duck, doesn't do anything. They already knew this at this point. So they actually started to run it like themselves. Because it's expensive to hire esports organizers, so they started doing it themselves, and they asked one of their like investors just like to help them with it, and he did, and they were really happy with how their end of November tournament ended up going. They had a prize pool of, I think it was $5,000, something like that. That's all like of their own money. Like they put their own money into that prize pool because they wanted people to be invested and juice.
Well, they put their own money. For what Jeremy told me, they put their own money up to hire the IndieBros as well. Yeah.
Yep. They did. That's part of the reason why they started this GoFundMe as well. So It was more than $1,000 US, but it's because it was in crypto.
Right.
So the community had a good time. And when November ended, they were sort of at this point where they're like, he's not responding to any of our emails now. We know that he's basically flown the coop. And we're not really sure what to do about it. Like, none of us are really in the UK. We can't like go up and personally go to any sort of like, go to any sort of personal like address that this guy has.
I should have been on the contract.
I think that maybe it was. I don't know the specifics of like where precisely this guy is and stuff like that. But I do know that they basically couldn't get a hold of him anymore. He wasn't responding to their emails. He wasn't responding to their calls, texts, whatever. So they talked to their lawyer and they talked to a Valve rep. And the Valve, then the lawyer and the Valve rep basically both said, DMCA your own game to wrestle the rights away from the publisher. And we're going to work with you, right? We're going to work to make sure that it like goes through. If this guy doesn't respond or he doesn't have like you guys are legally in the right to do this because of your contracts. So it's basically just going to take like, a few, like a week or so, and the DMCA will go through, and then you guys can have the rights back to your game, and you can put it like, we'll let you use the same storefront, we'll let you keep the same customers, like it's just a matter of legal stuff to transfer the rights that you signed to the publisher over back to you.
Right. Because
so the DMCA
and the original contract gave some sort of a separation clause in case he decided to bail.
Yes. Yeah. So like all their legal stuff is like they have all their ducks in a row. They just have to do it.
Yeah.
So they do so. And they do a Q&A on Reddit because they got picked up by GameIndustry.biz initially. GameIndustry.biz like made this whole post about like, publisher, like DMCA is their own work, which is like, that's a grabbing title. That's a weird thing that happened. And afterwards they go forward with a Q&A on their subreddit and sort of talk about like what happened and like who their publisher was and like what exactly was going on. And they realize that they aren't the only devs that have been affected by the game wall. Right. Like a couple of other publishers, a couple of other devs came forward and they were like, hey, this exact same thing happened to us with this guy. Like he hasn't been responding to our emails. He's just like stolen our game and all this other shit. And it seems like Eximius is actually the dev to come out the best out of this because they were the ones that had like the most capital saved up beforehand. All these other guys are like kind of SOL at this point. Yeah. Like they were really needing someone to help them out and they signed these contracts and like there's almost nothing they can do. So like they were just like, this really sucks, right? This sucks because this guy has almost gotten away with it. There's not a lot we can do right now as far as going forward with legal battles. And he's kind of like a snake in the grass, and none of us are based in the UK, so it's not really like we can like call someone and just like have this guy arrested or detained. So they're just sort of sitting on their thumbs and they're wondering what to do. And they sort of decided that with the other publishers coming forward, that they wanted to do a GoFundMe to try and get this dude like taken to justice. And there's a couple things that I want to make really clear for the people that are watching now. Number one is that these guys at Ammobox are pretty damn smart. They're really reasonable. When we talk to them, they're clearly angry about the situation as anyone would be. But they also completely understand the situation that they're in and how much it's going to take to get them out of it. Like on the GoFundMe, they list like who they are and like what they need, but they also talk about like they're wanting to get these legal fees to take this guy to court, but that they understand that this guy probably has just run off with the money, right? That the money is gone, that there's no way that they're ever getting back that lost revenue because the publisher has basically just like taken that money and left, and there's not really that big of like, if it's just one guy, like there's not really that much of a company to like sue to get their stuff back. And this GoFundMe is more of a like moral stance that they're taking, because they're like, we don't want to just sit back and let something like this happen, right? Like this is a bad situation to be in for anyone, and we're just so like flabbergasted that we got blindsided by this guy. Like he had everything in order. We did everything we were supposed to do, and it still just seemed like this guy got away with it. And we don't want that to happen. We want to try to like plant our flag in the sand and say we want to bring this guy justice. We want to do it like in the best way possible. So that's why they're raising money. That's why they're getting these legal fees together.
Can I ask a question, Devin?
Go right ahead.
There is absolutely no way getting that money back.
Yeah, pretty much. So
okay, go ahead.
So Game Wall is like a single guy, right? Like we're pretty much sure that the Game Wall is just a company owned by this single guy. And we assume that if he's taken these contracts and he's got all these revenue streams from all of these different people, there's technically nothing stopping him from taking all of that money and spending it all right away. As like you're gonna have that's illegal, right? You need to like pay your employees and such, but unless someone brings him into court, there's not a lot you can do about it, right? Especially if you're talking about two people from two totally different countries.
Right.
So
especially then.
Yeah, especially then. So if he's got all of the money, it's very likely that he has just spent all of this money that Ammobox and all the other devs that have worked with his publisher have given him.
Well,
and
at this point, I dare say he's got enough light on him right now. It's going to be quite a while before he can get his shit together to do it again.
Yeah, and you know, it's likely that this dude is probably just like a con artist, and like might like, what we don't want to happen again, right, is for him to like, I don't know, come up with like a fake name and like come up with like another company and like do this stuff all over again. So what they're trying to do is, by raising this money, they're trying to get him into court so that he can actually face consequences for what he's done. Because what he's done is definitely illegal, and he'll certainly go to jail for it. But it's just a matter of getting him into a courtroom so that happens, which is the hard part, because we're talking about, you know, a ton of different cogs moving and different legal systems and different like parts of the world that are at odds here.
Well, I'm pretty sure if he's actually still in the UK, if he's in the UK, and that's where he signed the contract from, the British authorities take very dim view of that kind of thing.
Yes.
I looked up, their Twitter is still up, but the website that they mentioned in their bio on Twitter gives the error, looks like this domain isn't connected to a website yet. So they took down their website.
Okay. Okay.
But their Twitter is still up.
I assume that it hasn't. Has it tweeted recently?
And the last post is from October 29, 2018.
Yeah.
There we go.
It hasn't been active in a while.
Exactly about the Eximius Halloween event is on. Can you survive the week-long horror? Yeah. The last post is about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. It seems like the guy just sort of fell off the face of the earth with all of their money.
Well, it sounds like what it sounds like is that he's a Portuguese citizen that was living / working in the UK. He may still be in the UK, or you might have to go to Portugal to get him.
Yeah, and you know that's the like you look at the it's such an open and shut case, right? It's just a matter of like getting this guy, and you think, well, why do you need 25K in order to get all this stuff done? It's exactly for that reason, that he's kind of a snake in the grass. It's going to take a lot of time, and they might have to hire like a private investigator to like determine exactly where this guy is.
Especially if this guy's gone to ground.
Yeah, and to find exactly the court that is needed in order to get him in there. I mean, like, 20K is a lot of money, but it's gonna pay for the legal fees that are needed in order to make sure that this guy actually like stands for his crimes. And right now, we're sitting at 774 of 25K, which is actually, I mean, it was raised by 32 people. So 32 people gave over $700. That's a lot, you know? That's a lot of money. And it's gotten a fair deal of shares, like 254 shares. And that's great. But it also, it's great, but it's also not close to that 25K. And this was like totally a shot in the dark for us. We weren't entirely sure exactly how it would go. In our wildest dreams, we would have definitely hoped that this picked up a ton of steam and they got like 25K. You know, we were coming up with contingency plans as to what to do if we got over that 25K, and like what to do like if that happened. And we're probably going to leave this up for the next month or so, because there's no end date on GoFundMe. GoFundMe's can
there never has been.
Yeah. So we're probably going to leave it up for a while and see how much we get. I would be surprised at this point if we hit the 25K. We're talking in our email chains with the publisher, with the dev right now about what to do with the money that we have right now, right? Like what our next steps should be if we don't think that we can get the money necessary for the legal fees. I don't think I should really talk about any of that stuff right now because none of it is set in stone. But just know that if you've given money to the campaign so far, whatever money you're going to give is going to go towards a good cause. Whether that be making sure that the devs like get paid, whether that be actually ended up getting this guy like on trial, whether that be like going to some sort of charity for like troubled legal cases and stuff like that. We're talking with the publisher about what to do with this stuff.
The developer, the publisher's the one we're suing.
Yeah, I keep mixing the two. I really apologize here.
No,
but,
like, don't apologize, man. It's not worth it.
But we're working with them. And we're working hard to ensure that whatever happens with this money is going to be something that you're like going to be proud that you put your money towards at the end of the day. Like, we don't want to just, you know, like the money is going to go towards something that's actually worth it.
Yeah, and you know, I really hope you guys do manage to come up with it, and there's a reason why. It actually would solidify at least a good chunk of copyright law right where it is, and it would provide a very chilling effect on larger publishers that think that they can just bail out and fuck off. Yeah, if they know they can, if they find out that there's a court in the world that has decided that they can be jailed for this shit, yeah, they're gonna. It will give some people pause, and it's entirely possible that a fair number of these roaches will stop what they're doing, or if they are, they're going to at least or if they do keep doing it, they're at least going to play lip service.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps. I think that definitely might be possible. Well, I'm not entirely sure how many publishers are set up the way that the game wall is. I definitely think that there are scummy publishers and scummy devs out there, right? I mean, we had that whole, asset flip debacle a couple of years ago, where just a ton of devs were just grabbing Unity Store assets and throwing them together and putting them up on Steam.
I have 2 words for you: digital homicide.
Yeah, I know, right? Digital homicide.
I actually went through. Here on this channel, we covered quite a lot of that.
It was an interesting case.
I thought I personally found it hilarious.
It's incredible what these people think that they can get away with. But I think I do want to emphasize that I don't think that what happened here is a epidemic that's industry wide. I think that this is very much a small case. I think that these guys are in the minority.
I'd like to hope so, but it's been my experience that where you find one roach, there's loads more.
True, yeah. But it takes. I mean, I think that eventually taking this guy to court would be a warning to people in the future for not trying this stunt because it might not work out for them. But as far as a lot of other publishers go, I mean, IndieBros works with devs that have no publisher, have some publisher, are where the developer themselves is also the publisher. I mean, for the vast majority of the publishers that we end up working with or end up being contracted by, they're pretty good guys overall, and they have some sort of accountability towards them. And I think that it's a little bit, I think that it's a little bit throwing the baby out with the bathwater when people are saying well, devs should just go with no publisher now, and they should just try to find whatever, because a publisher can be a very good option in certain situations. And I think that big indie publishers Devolver's great, Tiny Build is great. There are people out there that definitely will help you and help you publish your game. It's just the thing that really breaks my heart. That's at the end of this Kama Sutra article, is when the CEO is talking.
Hold on a second. Let me just grab that. Let me just grab that up real quick.
Yeah. Post it in the chat.
Look at it here. Well, I think it's already been posted in the chat, but I'm gonna just.
I posted it.
What I'm gonna do here, I need to turn that thing off. Right. Where is it? It's hiding here somewhere. Hold on. The our pet image today is hiding our website. There we go.
I'm posting it. There's no need.
I have it live for the stream too. So. And of course, this is Jeremy that did this. This is Jeremy that actually wrote this.
Yeah, this is Jeremy that wrote this. I think that he wrote it and then just published it. I don't think that he went through us, which is why when you read it, you might see some grammar and spelling mistakes. I mean, again, English is a second language for him, but he's pretty good at it. We don't have to correct him all that often.
Yeah, well, I didn't wind up correcting him much at all, so
yeah,
I was actually very impressed.
So here we go. The very last paragraph is like really what speaks to me about like the nature of this story in general. As an indie studio, we always thought that our job is to make the game with all our hearts and soul, market it to the best we could, and try our best to survive. The takeaway lesson here that we would like in all indies to know is to add this list to the worst case scenario. We had a great contract that we paid senior attorneys to look through. We did our due diligence, but we found no traces of any negative story. None of this was enough. This was not an experience we wished upon our worst enemies. Yeah. Which I think really, that's so like heartbreaking to read, because he's right, that they did do their jobs. They tried their hardest to make sure that like what they were doing was going to work, and it just, sometimes you just run into these people that are just absolute dirtbags, and there's nothing you can really do about it.
I tend to like, in my little brain, I've been tending to like, I've been likening this guy to a rad roach, and yes, that's a reference for all you Fallout players out there. They're evil. They're evil. They hit hard, and it's just hard. It's really hard to spot them up front, shoot them afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You're right, Opal, that if con artists were easy to spot, we would not have a label to describe them. Maybe not. But like, yeah, con artists are hard to spot. We had a discussion in our Slack group when this came up, where one of our guys suggested, like, should we, as the IndieBros, be like looking out and like looking at certain publishers to like see if like they're being chummy towards our devs? And we sort of came to the conclusion that, well, no, because, well, one, we got to trust our devs, and that they're being smart and working with publishers that they trust and like have had all this stuff figured out. And two, that this full story is a lot more indicative of just like some guy playing the game, like playing the system. And it'd be really hard for us to like really determine who is a snake in the grass and not, right? Like it's almost until they show themselves that's when you sort of understand, like, oh, this is the guy that I've been in bed with this whole time. It's so hard to determine something like this. You know, we can sit back and we can be like, oh, well, clearly. I think that it's pretty easy to sit back and be like, oh, well, clearly this guy was like bad from the beginning, and probably they should have known, and all this different sorts of stuff. But
Devin, maybe in the beginning he was doing the work to establish himself, in order to, in a later stage, it's called the long con. So he starts legit, and then later he cleans the accounts.
Well, he never actually gave them the investment that they were looking for, which would have been, to me, that's the first warning sign. But that's not.
Yeah.
I don't know the details of the contract, and I don't want to at the moment. If it ever comes down to it actually being in a court of law, then getting the contract out of the public record in the UK isn't that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I know I personally don't speak any legalese, so even if I had the contract in my hand, it'd be kind of difficult to parse out exactly what meant what.
We actually got pretty good at it here.
Yeah, looking at stuff and sort of like understanding the legalese of it.
Yeah. Well, there's also the small matter of getting hold of. There's a couple of lawyers on YouTube that I know and actually have contact with. You do that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lawyers are a good friend to have, certainly.
And I don't know much about the laws in the UK. I'd have to contact Sargon or Dave Cullen or somebody. They even answer my freaking emails, but it would be but yeah, it would be one of it could turn into one of those things, and I'd like to have somebody back if we could ever get if we get the contract later on. Mm-hmm. Have one of you guys have somebody from your team come back, and then and try and get one of the YouTube lawyers, especially one that does contract law, to come in and look at it and say, okay, this.
Yeah, maybe. Is Sargon of Akkad a lawyer?
What? No, Sargon is not a lawyer. However, he has access to lawyers. In fact, he's got one of his very own. And the lawsuit was filed over here against by Aquila Hughes. So
what's he suing people in the U.S. for?
No.
What's Sargon suing people in the U.S.
for? Somebody here in the Aquila Hughes here in the U.S. sued Sargon for copyright violation. That was a while ago.
Okay. All right. It's just like Sargon of it. What is he?
Why would I need to get hold of him or Dave Cullen? Because laws in the UK are different than they are here, and
yeah, a little bit different. Yeah.
And they're going to be fair. They're going to be fairly similar. The details will be different, but the overall would be similar because the law here in the U.S. is based on British common law.
Yeah. The big difference
will be very similar.
Yeah. The big difference is like copyright cases.
Yeah. Well, right now the British are under EU copyright law, which is a whole big mess. That's we don't talk about that train wreck. Holy crap. We'd be here for a week. We really would. Oh, don't get me started on that.
Devin, I had to leave for some time. I don't know if you covered while I was away. What exactly the IndieBros are doing aside from the
general marketing?
GoFundMe, yeah, to help the Ammobox studio.
So we have so like you said, we set up the GoFundMe. But the other thing that we're doing is that they're bringing us on as their marketing team, the marketing team that they were promised and they didn't have, right?
Yeah.
So what that means on our end is a lot of talking to media outlets and getting keys in the hands of streamers and YouTubers, and like potentially taking out ads if they want to do that. Our work is very scalable, and really the big thing that we're gonna do like exactly what they want us to do. So it'll all depend sort of on exactly what they're wanting us to do and help with. But for the most part, that's just going to mean like marketing the game and helping them keep on their socials. Like that's the big thing that we often end up doing is managing social media accounts. So we'll like set up a kind of posts to send and all different sorts of stuff. So, and we'll look over like trailer materials and Steam store pages, and we'll help like optimize. We're not exactly like we do like SEO kind of stuff, you know, where we're like in there and we're trying to make sure that your like game is the most searchable and like the most people will find it possible and stuff like that. That's the big thing that I mainly do is like going over marketing materials and looking over our store pages and helping with the tag system and things like that.
Yeah, for those of you watching who are not aware, SEO is search engine optimization.
Yep.
Yeah, we want to at least give it to them. We want to at least give it to them once because there might actually be a Luddite around that doesn't know what that is. I'm shit at it. I'll tell you that now. I suck at it, but you know what? It's okay.
Yeah, SEO is a lot harder to do for Google than it is for Steam. Like getting your website to come up in like popular search terms is like, ugh, that's like hard. Steam is a lot easier because of their tag system, so it's not as hard. But yeah, it's just a matter of like making sure that your game fits the algorithm well enough that it gets on people's store pages. Because right now their store pages are all algorithm based, right? Like that's what Steam moved to. So
yeah, everything.
It's not a matter of getting the name
personalized for each user as they come through.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Steam tag system, it's pretty good, actually, overall. They curate their tags weirdly. I don't super agree with all of the ways that they've curated their tags, but it does help getting more and more things onto people's store pages, so long as they keep scrolling down. But we're not here to talk about Steam and SEO, right? Any plans for GOG? The devs haven't talked anything about GOG. I think that part of that reason is because we're doing early access right now. And I'm not sure exactly how their DRM has been set up. So I don't know about GOG. I know that we at the IndieBros are also looking into how to get our stuff onto the Epic Store page, which is very heavily curated right now.
Well, I expect it will be curated for a while.
Yeah. If you go onto their website and you like look at, it's like, how do I get my game onto Epic Games? They're just like, I don't know someone at our office and talk to us. Like that's their strategy for getting games on there right now.
Or be a publisher, that's like
we have
billions of dollars an hour.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Or you're one of the indie darlings that everyone knows about because Edmund McMillan is up on the Epic Storefront. They were handing out. I think that was the first game that they were handing out for free was Super Meat Boy, which that's a prime game to get for free. I'll tell you that right now.
I think I actually have that one on Steam. I think I took a pass on it because I've got it on Steam.
I love that game. That game's fantastic. As far as like other stuff that we're working on, I think that our dev is pretty happy with just being on Steam right now, especially because we're like still trying to put out fires and get them, up and running. But like as IndieBros, we have been looking out more at other places because Steam is great, but it's also like it's hard to get used to there. It's hard to get seen. It's really hard to get seen.
Well, and I'm guessing the publisher, he invested the $100 to just have it dropped onto Steam in early access period.
Yeah.
Considering he knew he was going to make more than that by the time anybody figured out what the hell was going on.
And he already had games on the platform, so he had the in with Valve to just let it happen.
That's really where it comes down to. Yeah. Okay, how about on the same line, Opal's asked for GOG. How about some of the other side websites, Itch.io and maybe Green Man Gaming?
So Green Man isn't a Itch.io allows you to put your .exe on the website and pay for it. It is a storefront. Green Man is a key reseller. So what they do is they go. They're an ethical key reseller. I want to make that clear. It's not like G2G where they're like scummy and they're like stealing keys from people, right? Like they don't ask where the keys come from. But GOG buys keys in bulk. It's like the Costco method, right?
Right.
You buy stuff in bulk, and then you can sell it at a lower price. So that's what Green Man is. So if our game was to go on Green Man, it'd be because they like paid for a ton of keys and then they resold those keys, right?
Right.
They'd come to us and they'd be like, hey, we want to do a sale for Eximius. We want to buy a ton of keys from you and then give it back to you. There are other cartridge, which is Congregates.
Right.
One that they're doing, that's coming up. But like I said, I think that as far as other platforms are concerned, I don't think that Ammobox is really looking to go to another platform right now. They're just sort of trying to make it on Steam as it is.
Okay. Fair enough. So what's it looking like? What are we looking at for kind of their marketing plans for going forward?
Basically, the way that our marketing ends up looking for any one game is just when you have something to say, you say it, and when you have something to push, you push it. So like new updates come out and they talk about it on Steam, and we make sure that it's on their other socials. Like if a big community event is going on, we make sure that like the community is aware of it and all that different sort of stuff. And then if there's something that we want to push, right, that's when we start getting it out to people in like a big way. So if they were to do another tournament, for instance, we'd make sure that like we'd try to get it out to as many people as possible and to talk to the developer, to talk to the developers about like what they want this tournament to like be and look like. And then, you know, we'll try to take out ads in places. We'll try to let gaming websites know that this is happening.
Little bit of YouTube channels.
What?
Little bit of YouTube channels like this one.
Yeah, a little bit of YouTube channels. The thing that we do, right, is that we have a like master list of people that we contact specifically all the time. And we just give them keys for games that we think that they might be interested in. We like send them personalized emails, or maybe it's like a blast email chain or whatever, right? And they get keys. I mean, you've done this with us before, right?
Oh,
You're like, oh, Eximius sounds like an interesting game, and like this whole thing happened, and like, can I get some keys for me and my people so that we can go on and talk about it, right? So that's what we're doing, is that we just have like a master list of people and we send stuff out. I mean, it's very sort of guerrilla marketing, but that's like the most bang for your buck that you can get right now.
Yeah.
It's really hard to beat the potential of just sending out keys and seeing like what people are interested in it, you know? We were the guys that did the marketing for RimWorld and Cook Serve Delicious. And those were two games that were just got like really lucky, where it was a game that people really wanted to play, and so we sent out keys, and a couple of people started streaming it, and then just like people started coming to us over and over again, being like, "Hey, can we get keys? Can we get keys?" And it was like the game of the week on, it was the game of the week on Twitch for like a hot minute there, and that was like insane to think about. So I mean that's mainly what we do in terms of marketing. It's kind of hard to pin down any specifics at any one given time because our marketing strategy is so non-traditional.
Right.
And it's based on when you can get news out. Right. So we focus on socials. We think about ways that we can get the community more engaged. That's the big thing that we do is just community engagement and socials and sending out keys and talking to people. On occasion, we'll pay for a stream of any one particular game, but
well, you're not going to pay me like that. I'm too small. I'm way too small to be paid. Actually, I had that conversation with Eric during our first one. During our first stream, I think you consider, what is it, 10% or so response? If people even contacting you back 10% of the time,
yeah,
as a good number.
Yeah, because you gotta understand that like we're sending out, thousands of keys.
Right.
Like we're sending out a ton of copies, and streamers and YouTubers get emails like this every day. I'm not sure exactly how many keys you get, Crocus Squirrel.
Somewhere between I usually pick up between 3 and 10 keys on any given week.
3 to 10 keys in a week, and like not to like discredit you, but like you're a relatively small YouTuber.
Oh no, I'm an incredibly small YouTuber. There is no doubt on this, and I will happily admit it. I'm what 20.
And
I've
so
got,
like
what,
for
2,700 people, ish, 2,700 subscribers.
Yeah.
My average view counts after about a week are somewhere in the 40 to 100 range, or 50 to 100.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm nobody. I am literally nobody.
Getting 10% back is insane. Like, you imagine how all this stuff shakes out, and it's like it's crazy to think about. Cause you get streamers and YouTubers that are larger than 3K, and they're getting like hundreds of emails a day about X game that they want you to try out.
Actually, I think that number would be closer to 10K. I've been in roughly at the 3K area for a couple of years now, so yeah, it just getting 10% back is the sign that you have like a product that people want, because right. 100 people wanting to make a video about your game is a lot. Like when you take it into perspective, it's a lot. Yeah, well, I can see where that would be a large number, especially if you're talking about bigger channels.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean when I say, like, it's easy to look at the fundraiser and say, oh, well, it's a total failure because they haven't even broken 1,000 yet, and it's been 13 days.
Yeah, well again,
yeah, I've got 25K. Like, sure, that's not a lot in terms of like the percentage of 25K. But $774, 254 shares on social media, like that's a lot of people that are talking about this particular
problem. I was actually looking at the fundraiser here a few minutes ago, and you've got it looks like the smallest donations you got they've been picking up are $5. There's been a couple people just in the last week or so that have dropped in $100 each. I mean, yeah. 30 odd people. There's another one from a little over a week ago, another $100. You talk about 32 people that have sent in money, and some of them are fairly big.
Yeah. And if any of you in the chat are interested, we do have a soft donation tier system. this isn't like the super norm when it comes to GoFundMe. You know, it isn't like Kickstarter where they say like, oh, you reach this and you get this. But if you look at the description, $20. If you donate $20 and you have your like email attached, we'll send you an email that has a Steam key. $30, you get the Steam supporter pack, which is like a slightly more expensive version of Xemnas that comes with like some like free little cosmetic stuff. All cosmetic, doesn't have any bearing on the gameplay. $100, you get a special mention. Like I believe that's going to be in the credits of the game. And then $1,000, you get a special mention as well as your name and/or company, like in the credits of the game. So
yeah, it's actually running down towards. It's actually about halfway through. Actually, it's down at the bottom of the actual text before the videos, so you can actually have a look at that.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna do something here real quick. Clicky down.
Go right ahead.
I just sent you a tweet. I just shipped out a tweet there.
There you go.
Nobody pays attention to my Facebook, but hey, I'll just do that too. Why not?
Well, there's a reason for that, you know.
Nobody pays attention to my Facebook because I have mostly ignored it, to be honest. I don't really like
Facebook. Facebook just isn't a good place to market anymore.
Yeah.
If you're a public figure, right? Like you are, you're considered a public figure in Facebook's eyes. They don't just want you to make like a Facebook page of your name, or they don't just want you to make it a Facebook account of your name. They want you to make a page. And the reason that they want you to make a page is because then people have to like that page in order to get the posts sent to them. But Facebook like drip feeds the posts if you don't pay to get them on people's wall. Right. So like you're paying. Facebook is the only like really big social media company that I know that actively charges people to get information out, which we have almost entirely gone away from Facebook as like a consistent place to market games because it's not worth it.
They want money.
They do. They want money. They want plenty of money from you. I mean, there are good things about Facebook ads that I like that are better than Google ads. For one, they charge by the click. They don't charge by the view. So if you post ads on a sidebar on Facebook, you don't get charged unless someone clicks.
Right.
But they also
probably fractions of a cent
things like that. So they also skew view counts and things like that. YouTube considers 10 seconds of video watched a watch, like a full watch, because they found that if you get past the first 10 seconds, you're likely to make it towards the end of the video. But Facebook counts 3 seconds, which is just like people scrolling by. So their numbers are like wildly inflated.
Well, yeah, you got to figure.
Do you or the chat have any more questions for me about this game or IndieBros in general?
Well, I've already heard what Eric's had to say. Eddie, you managed to get to any of the major conventions?
No, not yet. I'm still pretty new. I might end up going to PAX West. Not sure. I mean, it's close to me, so it'd be pretty easy to get in and do that.
I'm closer. If you need a parking space,
Eric would appreciate it because
yeah, PAX West apparently is a pain in the backside.
Absolutely exhausted.
Yeah, I know he does. He works really hard. He works really hard at PAX to make sure that they get a good show. Yeah. I would like to go to a show. I'd like to be there to rep some of our people, especially because, like, you know, it's good to have your face out there. You know, it's one thing to have your name and title on a website, and it's another thing to like stand with someone and shake their hand and, you know, talk about like what they want to do with their game and
that personal,
you know, what they're excited
about. So you told us how you came on to IndieBros. How are you liking working for them?
I really enjoy the work that I've been doing here. Eric's a nice guy. Josh is a nice guy. We've been working with a ton of interesting games. We've been, it's been a lot of really good experience, both in terms of learning new stuff, but also learning how to apply old stuff that I've done in the past. You know, because I've basically always been someone that's interested in games and also interested in games media and games journalism and games industry. You know, I lived and breathed games for so long that now I have this opportunity to really showcase that. And that's been really fun. That's been a really nice change of pace from other stuff that I've been doing. So I've really enjoyed my work so far, and I hope to be working with them for a while still.
Okay. So how about well, you say you've been big into games for a long time, and you mind giving us a little bit of your personal history here? How'd that all get started? Because that's actually kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, sure. So let's see. I got started playing games when I was 2-3 years old. We had really good family friends who had older siblings, and their dad was also a nerd. So they had an N64, and they later got a GameCube. But I, from like a very young age, was like playing on the N64. And for Christmas, I think it was the Christmas when I was 4. Our parents got me and my brother a used N64, and we played the hell out of that thing. For the entirety of the GameCube run, we didn't have a GameCube, so we just would like rent or buy games from the N64. Games that I loved on that platform were like, you know, Ocarina of Time and Mario, but we were also huge Rareware fans, so we had Diddy Kong Racing and Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, and we got GoldenEye later down the line.
Ooh,
I mean, we were huge into. Go ahead.
Okay, so we've got 3 consoles.
There was also that game 34 or 39 games to Mars.
Yeah.
Blast Corps, I think is the other rare game, but we didn't have that. We didn't have Blast Corps. We had a lot of other rare games. We didn't have Blast Corps.
Probably didn't have Killer Instinct either.
No, we didn't have Killer Instinct Gold. So after that, the whole GameCube cycle. So like basically most of elementary school, we played on our N64, and that was great. That was a good ass time. And after that, we got a Nintendo Wii in summer of 2006, I believe it was, summer of 2007, which was like, oh my gosh, like we have a new, like we were so excited. We have a new console, and it's like new as in like it's like
still relevant.
Like, yeah, it's still in the current gen, and it was like they were totally new. Like they were like totally new platforms, and we played so much stuff on that. I think basically all of my allowance and every single birthday and Christmas included some kind of Wii whatever for like as long as that console was relevant. Mm-hmm. And me and my brother both bought ourselves DS Lites a couple years after that. And then we had saved up enough money to also be day one buyers of the 3DS when that came out.
Yeah, I was on that list too.
Yeah.
I was also on that list for the PlayStation Vita, so.
Oh, yeah. The Vita, man. That's a sad story.
I know. It's like they murdered it.
So after that, we went. After that, our friend had an Xbox 360, and so we played games on there. But my mom was a little bit hesitant at our age to get a lot of like M-rated games, and a lot of the big ticket items on the 360 and stuff was like, you know, M-rated stuff. So it wasn't something that like we were really interested in. But I had gotten really into the internet during the 6th grade. Like really started researching and doing a lot more like video gaming stuff. You know, like finding out like upcoming games and keeping on track of stuff. I remember watching a review for Ghost Trick Phantom Detective on the DS.
I remember that one.
And I went into a game store to buy a DS game, and they didn't have it in stock. I can't remember what DS game I was going to buy, but I ended up buying Phantom Detective instead. And good Lord, that game is so good. Like, that game is phenomenal. I can't believe more people haven't played Ghost Trick, because that game is so good.
I played it.
Yeah, that game is amazing. It didn't sell super well, but like, good Lord, that game is amazing. So we got into the internet in 6th grade, and that meant that we sort of like started to learn more about like the different stuff that was going on in the industry. And both me and my brother got really, you know, interested in it. And that sort of led us into playing more games on the computer. The first big game that I remember really playing on my PC was Minecraft. And then I got a Steam account and started playing like anything I could get my hands on. We just had like a crappy, you know, family desktop, but I didn't care. I eventually saved up enough money to buy my own PC, but I didn't know anything about PC building, so I bought like a terrible configuration, something that I wouldn't suggest anyone buying, because I like way overpaid on a ton of stuff and I didn't get the performance that I wanted out of it. Like, it was still basically like the family desktop, except it was like my own personal one. But I loved that thing. I mean, I was on that thing every day for a very long time because since we didn't own a console, it was the way that I could play like relatively new games and like get into stuff. So, you know, I played like BioShock and like Just Cause and Super Meat Boy and V and
there's only
like
6 V's in that. I have a copy. And man, I got my butt kicked on that one.
That game is great. I love that game. I wish it didn't run at 30, but that's neither here nor there.
I don't ever run anything more than 60. I don't have to.
I worked a summer job, and I worked 40 hours overnights for a summer job. And so I used some of that money to buy a 144 hertz, and I was like, this is great. I want this forever. So I got really into PC gaming in middle school and high school, and with that got into, as I'm sure a lot of us did, Total Biscuit.
Yeah.
Because he was the big...
Only for me, that wasn't middle and high school.
Right, yeah. he was a really, I got into Let's Plays in middle school, and him and Jesse Cox did that Terraria thing, and so that sort of got me on his radar. And I mean, like, to put it in perspective, I started watching TB before they started doing the TGS podcast,
right,
which is what they did before the Co-optional podcast. And I watched every single episode of TGS and Co-optional up until like earlier this year, where like I got really busy with other stuff and I couldn't keep up with it anymore. But I mean, like, I watched like basically everything that he ever did. And that really got me interested in games industry and games journalism and how to critique games in like a thoughtful and educated way. I would say that he's probably the biggest influence on how I look at media in general, because his analyses were so critical and easy to understand that it sort of like encouraged me to be more like thoughtful about the way that I was thinking about things.
Right.
It hit me really hard.
Don't get me wrong. I did something very similar.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched everything he's ever done, but I got some of the basics of critique from him, and some of the kind of a little bit of the showmanship that Jim Sterling likes to present. Although I generally tend to refuse to use this camera up here. I've got a camera. I actually got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, making sure that you're got a good presentation going. I mean, like, outside of games, that's like my history as like a gamer, you might say. I eventually built my own PC that like wasn't terrible, and that's the PC that I use right now. I upgraded it last year. So I mean, I play any and everything that I can get my hands on, and I like watch stuff all the time. I'm still a big Nintendo fan. I got a Switch right in front of me.
That's the one console I've been missing out of the recent critters.
It's great. It's probably my favorite console. Like, bar none. A lot of people like to say that I sort of was the sites that I was hanging around when I was getting into the internet in 6th grade focused a lot on NES stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I have this like deep fond appreciation for this console that I've never owned, right? Like, I think it's really cool. I think all the classic game stuff is really cool. I'm really into music, so I trained myself how to pick out instruments and songs by listening to chiptune, like old chiptune stuff a lot, because it was really helpful because it's so simplistic that you can really just easily sort of like divide it apart. And so like I have this like weird love for the NES, and I have this like appreciation for the SNES, and I have this nostalgia blindness for the N64. But like, it's really hard to say that like early 3D awkward stuff is like the best stuff ever. I mean, there are games that hold up clearly, but like saying that the N64 is the best console, I don't know about that.
Well, I can already tell you you're no friendo fanboy. If I asked you, I had actually at one point was going to ask you what your favorite console set was, which company you liked of the three that we currently have. But you've already answered the question.
I think that since I was indoctrinated, since I was indoctrinated into the cult of Nintendo very early on, I have a very deep fond love for them. I love Mario. I love Star Fox. Star Fox is like my favorite game. The only two amiibos I own are Fox and Wolf amiibo, because they're just, I mean, I love Starbox, like, to death, honestly. I love Smash Bros. To death. I follow the Melee scene. Genesis 6 was crazy. Ultimate has been really, really fun. Like, clearly, I know that I have, like, a Nintendo bias, but I just kind of like the way that they make games. But, like, as far as the other companies are concerned, Sony has been doing really, really well, and I want a PS4 very badly. It means that I have to save up money in order to get it, because like I want a PS4 Pro, because like I'm so used to 60 FPS gaming that I just want I want to keep it that way and stuff like that. And I haven't. That just takes a lot of time and takes a lot of discipline on my part, which I am somewhat lacking in. But of the recent console generations, I'd say that Nintendo in this console generation did okay with the Wii U. Like the Wii U financially didn't do well, but had some good games on it. And now with the Switch, they're just it's done. They're doing so much good stuff. I think them and Sony are sort of neck and neck in terms of the amount of good games that they're just bringing to the platform over the past couple of years or so.
Well, you wouldn't know it from the hardware sales, but yeah, Microsoft wound up at the bottom of the barrel this time around. Okay.
Yeah, they did. I think that they didn't do a good job of explaining what their always online system was for the Xbox One, and they had to switch it really early on. Really late into their development cycle, right? They had to basically switch it from an always-on console and just a regular console, because they were just getting absolutely demolished by all these other people. They they were just getting shat on by all these people that were angry about having an always-on console.
Well, yeah, I'll be honest with you. I was one of them. The very idea of what Don Mattingly had to say afterwards was the thing that drove me insane. It was he says we have a console for the folks that don't have it on, that don't want to be always online. It's called the Xbox 360. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, they really didn't do well with their marketing. If you watch their initial kind of industry only. Some people took notes on their industry only release about what the Xbox One was going to be capable of, and they actually had some really good ideas, stuff that you could do with an always online console that you couldn't do otherwise. They were going to have some hybrid stuff where you could stream a little bit of the game in while the game was going, and some other stuff. They had good ideas that just didn't come to fruition because they got just so destroyed in the initial marketing that they had to do a 180, and then they didn't have anything planned, and they had a lot of unlucky stuff happen to them where devs couldn't finish games for them and stuff, right? Platinum was working on that game for them, and that sort of fell through.
Yeah.
But Sony was doing gangbusters because the PS4 sold well initially because people didn't want, because the Xbox One had such bad press that people didn't want to buy it initially. So they bought a PS4 because it was a console that worked, and there was a couple of games that were coming out, and so people sort of just switched over to PS4. And it's a good console. I wish that they weren't as uptight about certain things. But now, since Microsoft is releasing all their exclusives on Windows 10 as well, I don't see a really good reason to buy an Xbox One, even though I think that it is a very good console and they're doing some really amazing stuff with it. Their controller that they just came out with, their disability controller, is amazing. That's something that I haven't seen anyone in the industry really try to do, and it's really great that Microsoft is pushing the industry forward in terms of making sure that like games can be for everyone, and putting forward like PC PC like features where like it's a very flexible console. It can do a lot of stuff. Like they're getting to the point where they're going to allow just straight up for you to plug in a mouse and a keyboard into your Xbox One and have it work like a mouse and keyboard. Like on Fortnite on Xbox, you can plug in a mouse and it works just like how a mouse would work on a PC. Like it's not this thing where it's like emulating the stick, but you can use the DPI of your mouse. Like, no, it's a mouse and it works like on a PC. So they're doing stuff that I really like. I admire them for doing that stuff. And it's probably because they're in like last place that they're just trying to like get a ton of good press. But I can't fault them for doing what they're doing, because what they're doing is just good for the industry in general.
Well, no, I really don't fault them. It's an okay machine. I just don't have anything massive for it, and I'd honestly, my PS4 gets a whole lot more love than my Xbox One.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a good console. I want to get it, because I mean, Bloodborne and Uncharted and God of War and Spider-Man, like those are like big ticket games that are great that you just can only get on PS4.
Yeah, actually, believe it or not, one of the big things that sold the PlayStation 4 for me was Persona 5. I was waiting for that game, and I pounced on that shit immediately. As soon as the pre-orders were available, I pounced on that shit.
Yep. I really hope that the Persona 5 R rumors are true and that it's like coming to the Switch or maybe coming to PC, because Atlas has been putting more stuff on PC recently.
Yeah, they have. Catherine.
Yeah, Catherine came out.
Yeah, they did Catherine recently. I know Atlas is actually Atlas has always been one of my favorites. What I'd like to see are the really early Shin Megami Tensei games.
The like really dungeon crawler ones. Yeah.
You see, that's the type of game that I like. I like my RPGs, you dungeon crawlers, and all that fun stuff. Bard's Tale,
like pen and paper stuff.
Yeah, Bard's Tale 4 and the Bard's Tale trilogy. One of the very first. As soon as I found out they existed, I made plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are talking kind of Chinese now, because I'm a PC gamer exclusively.
Yeah, Atlas is a Japanese dev that's been around forever, and they mainly make JRPGs, but they've also made some like really crazy stuff. Atlas is kind of like a Capcom, but a little bit more into the weird stuff. Like, if you've never seen Persona is a game that is part dungeon crawler, part JRPG, and part high school life dating simulator.
Yeah.
And it sounds like none of those should work, but they actually come together to create like this amazing game. Like, it's such a weird concept, but it works so well for them.
And that's actually one of the bigger things. Personas 3, 4, and 5 were like that. Persona 1, yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind the first Persona game. The second Persona 2 was split into 2 games, and I'll be honest with you, it drives me knucking futs sometimes. I mean, I've played through them. I know I finished those games, but oh jeez, the way they
that whole murder mystery gets very complicated.
And then, of course, the Joker, he kind of goes away and doesn't actually turn into a final boss. You know. Of course, somewhere down that line in what was it? It was Innocent Sin. We even got Anime Hitler.
Yeah, that's a weird turn. That is a weird turn for that game.
And then they stepped back from it for a long while. turned it into what you were describing for Persona 3, and then worked it a bit, and they worked it up a little bit. They took the time, they built their game. We got Personas 3 and 4 plus some extra stuff, and then just a couple of years ago they put out Persona 5, and they really pulled out all the stops for that.
They really did. It's a fantastic game.
But yeah, I'm mostly RPGs, and the first console I bought was the Sega Genesis and a copy of Phantasy Star 2.
Okay.
That game kicked ass and took names. Phantasy Star 3, meh. It was okay. That Phantasy Star 4 made up for everything that Phantasy Star 3 was not. And in fact, at some point, I went back and I actually managed to dig up a Master System and a copy of the original, Phantasy Star game. Which I still have, actually. I still have the cartridge. I actually have both objects. I have the cartridge and I have a Master System. Don't know where the Master System is, but I played Phantasy Star not very long ago. I managed to. It's actually on the PlayStation. I think it's the PlayStation 3. I can pull it up on. But then I have I have a pair of PlayStation 3 units sitting right here.
Yeah.
One for the general games and one that I used to play PlayStation 2 games. Because that.
And it still baffles my mind that they never tried to do like a Phantasy Star Online HD port to like PCs.
I will be honest with you, Phantasy Star Online had its own issues, and they did actually here not too terribly long ago. We did get or actually it's been a few years now. They put out a Phantasy Star Online 2.
Really?
Actually available in Japan, and I think the servers are gone now. But yeah, I've always been a big customer of Square Enix, Atlas, and a few others. I generally don't go for the heavy action games, and I suck at fighters. I really do.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that would rather play a single player game than have to deal with other morons in multiplayer. Kind of a me thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's actually been a lot. I don't own a Switch yet. Actually, one of these days I have to get one. Hopefully I can put my hands on it before the console generation expires.
I think the Switch will probably be around for a decent few number of years still. I don't think that they want it to go away anytime soon, especially because it sold so well. I mean, like, to put this in perspective, Smash Ultimate is about 1 million copies from overselling Brawl. Like, Smash Ultimate is 1 million copies from being the best-selling fighting game of all time.
Right. Okay, so I have a question for you. Since you probably read as much of the mainstream gaming press as I do, which is way more than I should. What do you make of the way it's going now?
Of how the industry is going right now?
No. The mainstream gaming press, places like Kotaku and other such joints. Kotaku, Giant Bomb, all those people.
Well, I mean, if you're asking me to comment on those sites and their general integrity as far as like journalism is concerned, I don't think that they are like. Let me get my thoughts in order. I don't think that they are drastically in the wrong all that often when it comes to their ethicality in terms of what they post, right? In terms of making sure that they get the right information, making sure that they are like saying everything that they need to say about like who they are and what they're doing or whatever. But I do think that they rely very heavily on clickbait, which is hard because we're in a time and a place where clickbait is the best way to get the information that you need to get out there. And that sucks. I mean, you get way more interesting, better journalism from YouTubers that are really in there and digging in the trenches and getting a ton of stuff out there. Like Super Bunny Hop. Super Bunny Hop is a brilliant channel because he goes so in depth into like different problems that are facing the industry and like has really, really, really good videos that could be op-eds on any other site that he just posts as his own videos. And those are great. And sometimes you get stuff like that from the Kotakus and other such things. But I mean, they also do have a tendency to push, their writers do have a tendency to push certain agendas, which happens everywhere, but like they've done so in ways that have been certainly unethical in the past. One of the ones that comes to mind is there was an article written about Trihex last year about the use of tryhard. And he used some of their interview snippets and then he slid in a quote from a Twitch clip, which sort of made it seem like things were like a little bit out of context. And that kind of stuff, I mean, that should be like, you know, that should be like heavily criticized. And I don't like how much capitalism in general is just like surrounding the games industry. Like IGN is an awful website because they don't do a lot of journalism. They do a lot of soft pieces that are written out and are basically just advertisements for the games. And that sucks. That sucks that our biggest industry leader as far as like what the public knows as games journalism is a little more than a advertisement magazine, you know? That kind of sucks.
Yeah, well, we used to have advertising magazines. They came on this shiny stuff called paper, and they kind of died after a while. The thing that I have a problem with is the pushing of progressive politics. Why do I need to, why do I need to know?
Well, what do you define as progressive politics and who's pushing it?
Well, I don't know. I seem to catch some folks over at Kotaku most often. There are certain folks that will start talking about that will get in the middle of a game. They start out describing the game, and then they start, and as part of their clickbait, they start talking about halfway through. They start talking about how there's not enough representation of, I don't know, whatever. Just wow, no, don't do that. I want to know about the game. I don't want to know that I don't want to know that this game is bad because I don't want somebody to tell me this game is bad because there's not enough fucking black people or trans people.
No, it's the cultural war being part of a game critique. Write a game review talking about the game mechanics, graphics, specs, how it works, if it's interesting, boring. Okay, it's a piece of opinion. If you find it boring, say why you found it boring. Make a professional review. Leave cultural wars out of the review.
Well, but games are a part of culture, right? Games are a part of the culture that we live in, and to completely ignore the aspects of culture that are primary factors in terms of the game, I don't know. That seems a little bit like that seems a little bit like we're just. There are certain games for which, like, okay, I think that Call of Duty over the past several years, like, doesn't have a lot of like great representation. Do I think that that's necessarily a problem? Maybe. I mean, it's gotten a lot better. They've gotten a lot more female characters in. They've mainly stayed away from the like big spectacle stuff that they've been doing, where they have like these like weird, like super pro-military campaigns that are like sort of flash in the pan. But like, the fact of the matter is that Call of Duty is the face of the gaming industry for most people. And so what does it say that the face of the gaming industry for a long time was literally just like a white dude standing in front of a gun shooting a bunch of brown people? Like, that may be indicative of like a problem with the games industry, and that might be something that you can criticize the game for. I think that like you might have to cite more specific examples of games that just sort of like game reviews in which the reviewer is very specifically like.
I can give you an example of a game that received a massive negative review all over the game journalism, YouTube reviews, and I'm talking specifically about Fallout 76. And these reviews are completely wrong, because these people played alone and for an hour or two. The game is not made for you to play solo. And for example, as a woman, sometimes I find myself alone, and then I look up my friends that are online, and I end up making new friends because I find myself in some tough situations with higher level enemies, and some higher level person shows up, helps me, we chat, and we become friends, and next time we team up. And there is the main quest line, and there are side quests, but what makes it, the game was highly criticized for not having NPCs, but what makes the game awesome is the interaction with the other people that are playing. I don't like much the word community, but what makes Fallout 76 great is the community. So it was a game that was underrated, was bashed all over by people who don't understand how it works.
Well, maybe.
And there's that thing, as a woman playing a game online, I will say 95% of my interactions with the folks on the game have been extremely positive. And the rest 5% are between people who we pass each other, or we are at the same location and we just ignore each other. And yes, there are people who are jerks because they can. And the last time that someone was a jerk, it was to me and Coco Squirrel. So they were not a jerk to me because I'm a woman. They were a jerk because they could. They were higher level. So yeah.
I mean, sure, that's fair enough, but I think that people mainly had a problem with Fallout 76. Like, any game that's multiplayer is going to be more fun with friends, I think, clearly. But I think that the big problems that you mainly saw people talking about with Fallout 76 were the fact that it had a terrible PC port, that they reused a lot of assets, that they didn't have a good method for getting across their story, that the combat system was almost completely changed from the Fallout 4, which meant
it's
that
not Fallout 4.
It isn't Fallout 4.
I met one of the beta testers.
Kitty, let the man finish.
Okay.
But it's using Fallout 4 as a base. So let's talk about like the enemy design. Usually in a game, you will have a system where there are like weak points and parts of an enemy that you shoot, and then it hits them, right? And like a headshot probably does more damage or whatever. Fallout really consistently has enemies that have kind of weird hitboxes, which is why the VAT system was in place, right? It was to encourage the use of the VAT system, which slowed down time and then allowed you to like hit the enemies in certain positions, to sort of give you that idea, to sort of give you that feeling of playing the old Fallouts. But in Fallout 76, because there wasn't that slowdown mechanic and you didn't have that time to make those sort of tactical decisions in order to hit the enemy, the way that they designed enemies with these weird hitboxes that are sometimes hard to hit, it just made fighting enemies a lot harder. And I don't think that you're wrong, that definitely Fallout 76 is a very different game from Fallout 4. But I think that the reason that people were mainly upset with Fallout 76 was that it was a game that had a lot of conflicting design aspects of it. And for all of the effort that the Bethesda said that they put into it, it was hard on the consumer end to see exactly where that went in, because we saw a lot of reused assets. We saw a lot of like corners being cut in terms of like having in sorts of like server crashes and in terms of like losing some save data sometimes. And I think the thing that really pissed off a lot of people was that there wasn't a whole ton to do in the end game. Right, there was some stuff to do in the end game, but like a lot of it felt very samey. I think that it's entirely possible for someone to have fun with Fallout 76. Clearly, you're having fun with Fallout 76, and honestly, more power to you. If you love that game, go ahead and love that game. But I don't think that people are in the wrong for saying that that game has some pretty fundamental flaws that should have been addressed by Bethesda before they shipped it out.
Before they shipped out, they should have addressed during the beta testing. But, you know, people who played Fallout 4, for example, in survival mode, think that it's much closer to what Fallout 76 is. And that is where I'm having trouble, because I didn't play Fallout 4 in survival mode. But I'm adapting. It's a learning curve. I met one of the beta testers. He's level 360 plus something.
Yeah.
And he's really... And there is no... At the moment, there is no end game quest. They are continuing to improve on the story. They are still writing the story. This is interesting.
They're still, I mean, they're still making it work. I think that the people don't necessarily have a problem with the story itself. I think that they have a problem with the way that it's been implemented, because the audio tapes are oftentimes, because of the way that the audio tapes were like implemented, you know, like what people really like about Fallout generally, you can have a totally different opinion about what you love about Fallout, but people that really love Fallout generally very much enjoy the characters and the world and the freedom that they have as a character to shape the world around them. And I think that a lot of people thought, oh, like we're going to be able to shape the world in really big and different and interesting ways, and we're going to be able to like change what's happening, and like we're going to meet all these like new, fresh, and interesting characters, and the game didn't really give them those systems that they were looking for, and so they're just
it really didn't. That was the thing. The really interesting characters really didn't come out, even when you're dealing with just holotapes.
But you don't need necessarily to start playing with your friends. It's totally possible to make friends while playing the game.
Sure,
which is my experience.
Sure, and that's like totally fine if you want to do that. And like go into a game and like have a social experience.
Experiments. I heard that.
Yeah, I know. I think that maybe what a lot of other people might be looking for, because and this might just be me like reading into things too much, because I know that this is how I feel when I go into an online game, honestly, I'm not really looking to talk to people. I'm looking to like do whatever I need to get done. And I've never played an MMORPG, so I haven't needed to have like very good communication with other people. And I've definitely had like run-ins with people in the past. And when I was in TF2, I definitely had like people that I talked to a lot. But like, I don't know. Maybe some people just aren't always looking to make like online friends. And like, as far as your comment that like you haven't faced a lot of like harassment on in 76, that's great. Super awesome that like you as a woman haven't faced a lot of harassment in like Fallout 76. But I don't know that that's necessarily entirely indicative of the way that generally online internet culture has been and like continues to be, because you can go into, say, Ammunition's stream, who plays a lot of like high skill FPS games, and you see all the time that she gets like verbally abused by people that are in the comms, which is really sad. And like, I'm really glad that people like Epic are taking responsibility and saying like, hey, when you play our game, like you should like be held to a certain standard, and we're gonna ban people for being like pricks for like all sorts of different reasons. So like, I think that it's just a matter of trying to change the culture that we have, and I think that it is overall. I think that it is changing, but it's just, you know, it's hard to fix something like that overnight. And I'm very glad that you don't have all that much problems with online stuff in general. Like, that's great. Super good. I just, you know, I've heard too many testimonies from too many women with these issues to really say like outright that I don't think that there's a problem there.
I think it's a little bit a part of the attitude. I expect nothing. And when I started playing by expecting nothing, I gained a lot.
Yeah. I think that that was a good way to go into Fallout 76, is like not expecting a lot. But the way that they marketed the game, and just by necessity of it being a game with the name Fallout, right, carrying the brand Fallout, there's going to be some expectations.
Yeah, well, that's just that. Honestly, that's pretty much the way it works for almost anything. I've seen a number of games that would have. I've seen anyone. Oh God, I've seen so many games. They're labeled as part of a particular franchise, and if all they had, the only thing they needed to have done to make the game a million times more successful would be to slap a different name on it. And
yeah,
if they had
put it
done
in a
that,
new
it would have
IP,
been
put it in a different area. Yeah.
Actually, not even a different area. They could make the same. They could leave the game the same way, put a different name on it, and push it out the door. People would have gone, "Oh, what's that? Ooh, that looks cool. Hey, I'm going to do this."
Yeah.
You don't.
By naming it Fallout 76, they tied themselves up to the release date, October 23rd, 2018. Because if they missed that day, they would have to release the game only in 2019. They wanted to release the game on the Fallout on the D-Day, and that was a mistake because the game wasn't ready.
Well, I would honestly, I think I would have given it that extra year to work out all the bugs. That's just a me thing, though. But then, from what I hear, they're actually going to be rushed. They're actually putting a rush job on Elder Scrolls 6. I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I think I really don't like that they're using the same engine again.
Well, yeah, not once but twice, because Starfield's supposed to be on it too. They really need a new engine, in my opinion.
They should.
And they are developing a new engine, aren't they?
Not for Elder Scrolls and Starfield. They're using the same engine that they've Frankenstein since Morrowind.
Well, Morrowind was Gamebryo, and then they went through and they updated it, and they did a bunch of other stuff for the creation engine for Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, which was fine. Those games worked very nicely as they were, but starting with Skyrim, well, Oblivion used the same one. But starting with Skyrim, they just needed to. They probably should have started working on that. They should have released Skyrim, and before they even went near Fallout 4, they should have either gotten or built themselves a new engine. That's my opinion.
I agree. You can do so much more with a new engine. You could fix so many problems by starting from the beginning, or even just outsourcing, like a lot of companies do. I think Nintendo is like really the last big company that keeps making new engines.
Wrong.
I mean,
wrong. Square does this every time. Almost every time. Square, you get a game coming from Square, you can almost guarantee there's an engine that the engine behind it is either new or very recently made. They keep doing that. I don't think they've ever used the same engine for more than 3 games. Ever.
Didn't they switch the engine? Oh, maybe it was the engine tool they did for Final Fantasy 14 Redux.
Actually, I played. What they did originally was they built one for the original Final Fantasy 14 that turned out to be shit. It went very, very badly, and it was actually based on 11's engine. So when Final Fantasy 14 went to shit, they actually booted the old engine and they built a new one on the rush, and then went through and built around it. Yeah, taking up the 11 engine was probably a really bad idea because it worked for 11 and not for 14. When they made the modifications, they just made it so much worse. The other one that actually got a fairly long life was the one that they based 13 and 13.2 on. Those two were the same engine a couple of years apart, and then when they did Lightning Returns, they went to a completely different engine again, which I might add was never reused. They started building what is now Final Fantasy 15 on that engine, and then they about 2/3 of the way through they scrapped it and then went and built a whole new engine for it. But the Atomic Store is in fact cosmetic, and you can still get everything you want if you're willing to take up the challenges over there in the chat. Also note that I can understand why they reused a bunch of Fallout 4's assets. Those assets were actually still good to go for 76. Because the engine hasn't changed. The engine didn't change very much. There were a few bits of polish that were added to it. But if you're talking about the same technology developed at about the same time in game, then having those things running on. Oh, did I do that? Oh dear, that's not good. We can't have that. Let me just reload here. Sorry about that. Let me start again. I don't know when.
Oh, you're back.
I'm back. Sorry about that. I wasn't hearing anything. So, reuse of assets from Fallout 4 to Fallout 76. I get that to a point. Because you're talking about the same technologies that were developed all at the same time in game. So having some of the stuff is likely to be familiar. You're going to see this thing and that thing and that thing. All the common stuff that you're going to see would be the same whether it was in Boston or in Appalachia. Appalachia is much bigger than Boston was, though. And that I think was part of the problem with Fallout 76. But yeah, you're going to see things that are going to be fairly similar. There's actually some stuff that I've seen that looks almost like it did in Fallout 3 when we were dealing in DC.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't think that any one particular person is like extremely upset that like if a developer doesn't make like all new assets every single time for every single game that they ever make. Like reusing assets is like a big thing. But I think that people were upset at the level of reused assets. Like the like final boss, like the level 70 boss is like almost exactly just a dragon from Skyrim.
Yeah. But they did
same animation.
They actually redesigned that. They actually had to redesign it. It's actually 6-limbed, which I find very interesting. I have no idea where that came from, but it's actually 6-limbed, and it's animated in a similar way, but the mesh I think is actually mostly new. Like it's almost I'm pretty sure it's almost entirely a new mesh on that. I mean, yeah, I get where you could draw that conclusion, but I'm almost certain that mesh is new. I've seen those things up close and personal. And
well, I mean, that's good. That's better than it was. Clearly, they're taking time to update the game and be better.
Yeah, I realize. But yeah, the stuff like it's like I was in Vault 94. I was at the entrance of Vault 94 earlier today, and I recognized a couple of things that were in there. And like the vault, the way to open the vault, or the console that opens the vault, it's a straight port from Fallout 4. The same thing is true of whatchamacallit, the trees and a lot of the rock textures. Those are all taken from Fallout 4 and Skyrim. Especially the mountain textures, which is actually kind of a good thing. Again, why invent the wheel if you don't have to?
A rock is a rock is a rock.
Yeah, well, this is true. I think they could have used to update the textures a little bit. But again,
yeah,
if you have to reinvent the wheel, you're doing something wrong. Now, mind you, I don't think that taking a Unity project, just compiling it and throwing it onto Steam is a good idea either. That's not actually work. You didn't do anything. It took you 3 hours to get freaking what the hell was it called again? Whatever the hell it was, Z. That's that blocky zombie game that was released 25 times.
Yeah, I get
that. I forget what it was actually. I forget what it was actually called. But yeah, that's not a thing that you do. You put something else in there. PUBG is almost all Unity assets. Almost entirely.
Is it Unity or is it Epic's assets? Because they were using.
If they're using
like
Unreal,
they bought the assets from.
It would be assets from the from the Epic store, but I know that over 90% of the assets were used, just stuff that they bought. But they did enough, and they really concentrated on the coding to get that arena thing going. Which is, again, not a bad thing. There's a lot of creativity in that.
I think that it definitely comes down to how you're using the assets. I don't think that there's any problem. I mean, developers do it all the time. Big developers, small developers, they take generic assets and they put it in there because it's easy and it's fast. And I think that PUBG definitely stands as a testament of how to ethically make an asset flip, right? That like if you're paying for all your stuff and it's like still trying really hard to make sure that like the core of the game that you're creating is like really fundamentally different, you know, than like just the assets that you bought. I think that that's fine. PUBG did really well because of that. You know, PUBG was a game that was able to capitalize on it was a mod that was gaining traction, and they decided to really jump on it and sort of be the first ones onto market when it came to like the battle royale thing. And I think that they clearly got a lot of success because of that. You know, I think that because they were an asset flip, they got a lot more success than if they had like waited the extra several months to make all the assets from scratch and then put it out there.
Well, yeah. You mentioned that it was actually faster to buy assets, and you'd be right there, because it's not just faster, it's cheaper too, because you can go get some assets. You can get the assets that they use to make PUBG in, you know, a couple $1,000s, as opposed to having to pay somebody, you know, $60,000-$70,000 a year to make all fresh assets. You know, the bigger developers, the bigger places, they can do that, and they'll get away with it. They can do that. They can afford to hire a modeler to do everything from scratch. And believe me, 3D modeling gets expensive after a while. Because it really does. I actually do some of that, and all the way from, you know, the first few polys all the way out to whatever the finished product might be, including textures. And I've seen some games I have ripped open. There are a few games I have torn open because the texturing is just that bad. They screw up their UV maps. They do some other thing. There's a lot that can go wrong. And if you hire somebody at $60 or $70K a year and they're not 100% on what they're doing, your game's going to look like crap.
Yeah. Speaking of 3D models, did you see that image going around where there's a single frame in Kingdom Hearts 3 that didn't get the approval from Blender? Like, the program didn't recognize that the key was legit. So there's a single frame that has like a Blender watermark on it in Kingdom Hearts 3 in one of their cinematics.
I don't think you don't have to pay for Blender. It's just somebody did it. Just somebody was doing it wrong.
Or something like that. I think that they were using a specific plugin for Blender.
See, that
had a watermark on it or something. Because they're like it's in the Frozen scene. There's just like, let me find it. KH3 Blender watermark.
Yeah, Fallout Tactics was not an amazing game, Skid Row. I agree. Because I'm actually about in '76. I'm about to start investigating what the hell happened to the Brotherhood.
Yeah. Oh, okay. They were using Maya. It was for Autodesk Maya, and it put it in when they couldn't find the Arnold rendering license. I'll drop it in the YouTube chat.
Yeah, do that, because I'd like to see that. Uh-oh. Oh, crap. Sorry about that. Actually, why don't you post it over here in the chat there on the left for the Hangout, please? I have to redo it. Yeah. You don't have moderator status here, so it's...
No, it's all right. I got it. You gotta protect your people, so I got it. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
I'm pasting it.
All right, so let's have a look. Who's Arnold? One for
right?
Look that. Oh yeah, there it is. There's that watermark. Yeah, yep. Arnold is I think Arnold's actually a rendering engine.
Yeah. It's so funny to think about it. It's just crazy.
The Arnold renderer. Yep, it is in fact a render engine. It's specific to Maya. And well, Maya is itself Maya's expensive in and of itself. So, Arnold for Maya provides a bridge for the Arnold renderer within Maya's standard interface. I'm not surprised to notice that. Let me see. Okay, let's have a look and see what Square neglected to do. Wow. A single annual subscription fee is $615 a year, or $65 a month.
Yeah, I would guess.
And that's just the renderer. Getting Maya itself is I think $50 a month or so.
Yeah, I would probably guess that was just like a software mishap.
Yeah, it probably is.
That like they didn't catch because it's kind of hard to find a watermark, you know?
Well, it depends on whether or not you're looking at the renderer. Because Arnold, it looks like Arnold is actually subscribed to Arnold, yeah. But if they use an educational license, then that would actually cause it. The same thing would happen for if the thing was actually pirated.
Yeah, which I doubt that would be the case if it was Square and Disney.
We're talking about Square and Disney. I kind of wonder how it is they even found that thing. One frame.
Yeah, I know, a single frame of all the like cinematics. And I have to assume that they're using Maya because Disney is giving them access to the original, like Disney and Pixar are probably giving them access to the original rigs, right? Like to base their new animation rigs off of.
Actually, believe it or not, Square actually most of the gaming industry at that level, they all use Maya. Maya is brilliant shit as far as they're concerned.
Well, I mean, like rendering softwares are. It's funny, right? Because rendering softwares are like so good now on the consumer end that like professionals are also using it. Like there isn't really a divide. Which I just think is fascinating. I saw someone go out and see Spider-Verse, and then they were like, I want to try to do that in Maya, like in my own Maya, like, and just like animate it from there because I really like the art style. And it looked like shockingly close to what it looked like on the
I'm not surprised. Like there's a lot of people that can do that. I think trying to replicate a human being for me is going to be a little difficult. I usually work with some sort of a base model and then modify it to my taste. But Maya's actually Maya itself is it's a modeling program, modeling animation. That's what it's primarily for. Renderers are different. I usually just use the inbuilt mental ray if I'm working with Maya, which works quite well, I might add.
I mean, I think it makes sense, right? Because the average computer nowadays, like you can buy a relatively high-end computer that will do the work that you need a workstation to do when we're talking about like getting your models ready and stuff. Like it's funny to think about just 20, 30 years ago, you needed to buy like a big ass expensive PC whose sole job it was to render the models that you could then work with. Mm-hmm. Like now it's just like any old computer could do it. Like sure, you have render farms when we're talking about like getting everything like situated when you have like a ton of stuff, like when you have like a ton of CGI on screen. But the average computer nowadays can just like run that program no problem. Like the big issue is like making sure that like your rigs do what you need them to do, and like making sure that like artistically the model looks well, and like all this different other stuff. But a lot of the compute stuff that used to be such a big barrier to entry just isn't there anymore.
Yeah. Well, I have the machine I have right here was about $2,200, and it's in dire need of updates. But I can still put together. I can still render a very high poly scene.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Grumpy people should buy some happiness and play Fallout 76.
Thank you, L0v3ly K1tt3h, for the $24.50 donation. It is much appreciated. See, what Tom says, wait. I don't know what Tom says, wait for. Yes, there is a Wasteland 1, and if I'm not mistaken, you buy the nice edition of Wasteland 2, and it comes with a copy of the original Wasteland. And yeah, Fallout and Fallout 2 were, I'm not sure which one of them was first, Wasteland or Fallout, but
Wasteland came after Fallout. Hang on. I'm pretty sure Wasteland is like relatively
well, they
new.
were fairly close together.
1988.
All right.
That's when the original came out.
Okay.
And Fallout came out in 1997. So it beat Fallout by, almost 10 years.
What, the original Fallout game? No. The original
Fallout game came out in 1997.
What? Did it?
So the first Wasteland came out in 1988, and the first Fallout came out in 1997.
Right. Okay, so the information of the chat is actually correct.
Yes. 2 is from 2014. And 2, I think, takes a lot more from Fallout 2 than it does from Wasteland 1.
That actually is not surprising. Speaking of Fallout 76, there's a few things that they actually... There's a few things that a lot of people were bugged out about, like super mutants in Appalachia, especially 25 years afterwards. But it turns out that they actually had they actually put together a story that made it all work.
It was the quest that I ended up today by accident, helping a friend.
I'm not very into Fallout lore, so I can't really criticize any of those aspects. But I mean, sure. I mean, they can write anything to make it work, I guess. Mm.
Well, no, they actually did do that. They actually went to some trouble to make sure that actually worked. I haven't done that quest yet.
They add lore pieces.
Yep.
Yeah.
But apparently FEV was not built by the guy over on the West Coast. It was actually a military project that didn't go well. It went very badly. They did the same thing for the to explain why there are no actual NPCs in Appalachia. They were all turned into the Scorched. So yeah, the original Wasteland was mostly okay. The new one is actually based much more on Fallout. Wasteland 2, much more on Fallout than it was the original on the old Commodore 64. And don't prep for nuclear fallout scenario anymore. No, we've actually been having some fun in 76. The other game that I thought was that I thought kind of went the game that I thought went kind of overboard was Battlefield V. That's the one that went completely overboard.
Overboard in terms of what?
actually, a good chunk of it was historical revisionism. The woman and her daughter that went and took care of a mission that took several men in the original edition, the one that was actually from World War II, to complete with no sign of the two women in the actual history.
Actually, the game went as far as erasing actual people and actual events in order to be inclusive.
Yeah,
if your game claims to be historically correct, yeah.
If they just said it was going to be a fantasy version, I don't think anybody would have given a shit.
Well, I mean, hasn't Battlefield always been a fantasy version of
no, actually, Battlefield grew up around being as realistic a military shooter as they could make.
Yes, when it initially came out, but once Battlefield 3 came on the field, I mean, like, in Battlefield 4, a consistent part of the gameplay is the fact that giant buildings are being toppled in the middle of, like, military zones. And that, like, isn't a likely scenario to have happen for the most part. I mean, I understand being upset that Battlefield has, like, gone away from military simulation. And I can also understand that, like, maybe you really wanted, like, very historically accurate things, like very historically accurate stories to take place in the Battlefield universe. But I mean, like, Battlefield 1, right? Over half of the guns that you use, A, didn't fire that way in World War II, and B, were, like, prototypes that never really got used. I mean, like, Verdun is a way more accurate version of how World War I battles actually took place. Battlefield 1 is kind of like a fun times sort of like, hey, wouldn't it be neat if all this stuff happened? I mean, I can totally get wanting a realistic military game, but I don't know. I think that if you want to have a war story about a woman in World War I and, like, have it be vaguely taking place in like this time period in this specific mission, I think that that's okay. I think that historical revisionism is, like, a very loaded word because it sounds like you're twisting the history to be something that it isn't, to, like, push something. But this just seems like, you know, it's like when Quentin Tarantino had a bunch of Jewish people murder Hitler in France. Like, is that historical revisionism? I don't think so. I think that's, like, historical fantasy.
Well,
and it's what they were going for. I think
Quentin Tarantino, you know what he's going for. He's just there to make lots of blood.
Can I say something about representation? As an LGBT woman, I don't give a fuck about representation. If the character fits the narrative, so be it. If the character doesn't fit the narrative, making the character to represent a quota of the society, to me, is nonsense. And I have the degree in language arts, and this is not how you write a story. I'm not demanding representation in video games. I just want the video game to be fun.
That's actually at the end of the day, that's the big thing, I think.
If it's not representing LGBT women or men or whatever, I don't care. I only care about having fun playing the game. To me, it's about escaping the harsh reality of my day-to-day life in the real-life world.
Sure, I can see that. I also, like, I understand why people might be upset with EA doing the things that they did with that game. I don't know that I super agree that it feels like they just shoehorned in a woman because they wanted a woman to, like, you know, be in Battlefield. I feel like the story writers wanted to see what it would be like if they wrote a woman into that scenario. That's where I personally see it coming from. And as someone that's also on the LGBTQ spectrum, I don't like. I want there to be representation, but I want it to be from the perspective of someone that's like legitimately making a story that they like care about, you know? I don't agree with people that say that, like, oh, like it was completely unnecessary that Soldier 76 was gay. Like, there are people that are going into forums and being like, well, like now statistically, like it's unlikely for them to have this many LGBTQ characters in the like story because of like what averages are, and it's like, whatever. Like if they wrote the character of Soldier 76 and they felt like, I feel like, and like the writer was like, I feel like this guy is gay, I feel like that's cool. And the thing that really pisses me off, what? Go ahead.
Exactly. You write the character, and being gay or being in the LGBT spectrum or being a woman or being a man or being whatever is not what defines the character. It's one of its aspects.
Well, and to be perfectly honest with you,
that is super cool.
Here's the thing that gets me. Specifically with Tracer and Soldier 76, the characters themselves are just are stand-ins for the people that are actually playing. Why would this information even be necessary? Why do we care? You know, that was my take on it when they jumped.
Why do people care that they're gay?
What? Yeah.
Why do people care that they're gay?
Why?
Because the standard is that they're straight. So, like, let's take Black Panther as an example, right? Black Panther is a really good movie. I don't think that a lot of people would like argue with me on that's like a very good movie.
I'll take your word for it. I haven't seen it.
I think that what pushes it beyond is that it wasn't just a story that they're like, here's this white superhero, let's make him black. It's that here's this black superhero where part of his identity is that he is black, and that it's baked into everything that he does. He's an African king, and he takes on a lot of values, right, that are like like his country takes on a lot of values that can be associated with African cultures, right? It's like a homogenization of a ton of different African cultures, and they make their own like super society of like black people. And like that's why people loved it, was because it was this story that would only have ever been told from that perspective. And like, from the perspective of someone that sees myself in a lot of media all the time, like it didn't matter to me so much that he was black, but it mattered to a lot of other people because they don't get to see themselves in games all that often.
See, here is my take on the same thing. Black Panther has always been black for a start, but 99% of the time you're looking at a character, a well-realized character that just happens to be black.
Yeah.
And really, as long as it's treated that way, I don't give a it doesn't matter to me. You know, that's all set up in an African setting. It's set up specifically so that you have this thing, and I'm completely okay with that. Okay, that Black Panther is black. Well, why not? He should be. As far as I know, Black Panther has always been black from the comic books on forward. So if they had replaced Black Panther with a white dude, I'd be pissed. Okay. I would be all over some people for that. But you know, I'll be honest with you. I've spent time on battlefields, actual battlefields. I've seen meat grinders. Wow, those things freak. And I have. In fact, I actually led a unit that had female members in it. But at the same time, but again, you got some of the biological differences that make having women on a battlefield a little problematic. That's just me. That's me and my experience.
Biological differences? What exactly do you mean?
Men have more upper body strength. Bone density is higher. There's a lot of things that will enable a man to pick up something and move it around, and a woman simply can't, or it will be able to carry less, for example.
True, but women are better shots than men in general.
I beg to differ, but yeah, you're...
No, like, seriously, like, because of their, like, they if you look at, like, the capability of a woman sniper versus a male sniper, women are at an advantage in terms of, like, sniping. They are much better shots than men in general.
Yeah, I was actually better than the other one that we had, better than the woman I had there. But it's not
right.
Really,
but that's sample of one. I'm saying statistically overall, just in the same way that you're saying statistically overall. I'm sure that woman that was on your squad could lift better than some of the men on your squad. Like, I'm sure that you could find a woman that can lift better than some men.
Oh, yeah. No, I have found women that could carry the weight. A lot of them can't. But then the people that I had with me had to meet the same standards that the men did. So I actually got the lucky end of that particular stick. There was only ever one exception, where some of the guys would have to carry some of her kit. She carried her own explosives and then used them. She was better than any of us.
Yeah, I think that if women meet the same standards as men, I mean, regardless of if as many women make it into the army, because I don't think that as many women would make it into the army, simply because, like, the culture of men soldiers is so, like, much more, right? Like, men are so much more willing to go to war than, like, a woman is. And I think that mainly has to be, I think that that's mainly, like, a society thing in general. I don't chalk it up to, like, biological differences, because there are tribes of warrior women that have existed throughout history. But I just mean to say that, like, if a woman meets the same standard as the man, I don't see a problem with her doing anything that a man can do. Like,
I don't see a problem with that. I didn't have any issues. Like I said, there was the one exception. She was an airman, and I don't expect all that much out of airmen anyway. So it wasn't like anybody was causing a problem. But I do know that the overwhelming majority of women would have had problems with what we were doing. But the
overwhelming majority of women aren't people joining the army, just like how the overwhelming majority of men aren't people joining the army. Well, like, I know I would probably not make it in the army, but I also know that I never want to join the army, nor is that a, like, goal that I have in mind to do so. Like, generally, I tend to disagree with a lot of army mentality, and also I know that my build is not one that's suited to the high physicality state that a lot of army men have to be in. And also I know that I'm more mentally susceptible to having problems later down the line. I mean, even people that go in with no mental problems come out of war and, like, are completely, like,
they're completely different. Yeah, I know. Believe me, I know that one. But no, when I joined the Navy, I was actually built kind of like you are. So
yeah, I'm like, certainly, I think that
your build is not a problem. The military will fix that. They have their ways.
I just mean to say that, like, I think that you're right that the vast majority of women would struggle in combat zones, just in the same way that I think that the vast majority of men would struggle in combat zones. And even if there's a disparity between the exact percentages, if a woman meets the same standard as a man in terms of all of the like categories, I don't see a problem with women on the battlefield.
I didn't see a problem with women on the battlefield, and that was the 1990s. We were part of a test. We were actually part of. There were 10 such units, and we were part of a pilot study to see if women could even make it in combat, and under what circumstances.
I personally wouldn't join unless I was forced to join. And when I had an opportunity to take up arms, I refused because I am a pacifist. So that was my personal choice. I wouldn't want to kill another human being. And I succeeded so far. And from all the problems that I have in my life, these problems happened because life happens. It has never been because woman, because LGBT, because nothing of that. It's because life happens. And life isn't something that is supposed to be fair. Life is not fair.
Never has been and never will be.
Yes, and how you deal with the cards that are dealt to you, how you play the game, is up to you. And I believe that I did the best I could do with the cards that were dealt to me. And there are very few things that I would change if I look back in my life. So I consider myself overall, if you want to write my epitaph and put it on my tombstone, she lived. It was never a problem. Whatever my choices is, they were never a problem. And if they were, I dealt with them.
See, the thing that I actually liked about about the women I had with me, they were considerably more risk averse, and they tended to go with quieter, more thoughtful tactics than men would. But the flip side of that is that we had, since my team was more or less evenly split at any given time, we wound up not having as many problems with the men acting like freaking heroes to save the girls. And I know that was a definite problem in places where you had more men than women.
Yeah. Yeah, and that has like so much more to do with like the men growing up in a society where they're told like, and basically all of their media, that like the man is supposed to save the woman and stuff like that. Yeah.
So anyway, so we have actually gotten way off the topic.
Died
like an hour ago.
What I liked about our conversation, we were talking about diversity. We had here a diversity of ideas and of opinions, and I think this is really awesome. I thank both of you for whatever you said, because it's really interesting to interact with people and learn from their experiences.
And an actual polite exchange of ideas. Those are always good. We like those. All right. So yeah, we have like completely gone off. We've completely gone off the rails at this point.
Yeah,
you know.
So a few more questions for you. Can you give us an idea of what IndieBros has got coming up in the future? What projects you're working on?
What projects we're working on?
Or even just you.
We're working on the upcoming Anodyne 2.
Ooh, I've been thinking about that one.
Yep.
I saw the stuff for Anodyne, and I'd love to get my hands on a copy of that, and I don't. And Anodyne 2 probably going to wind up being better.
Yeah. We're working on having an announcement come out soon for that, so stay in the loop for that. Let's see. We have a game coming out. We had a game just come out, Bombfest, which is a 4-player multiplayer game where you play as like little wooden dolls and you throw bombs at the other people to make them like fall off the side of the arena.
I've seen a lot of games like that.
Yeah. Well, it's cute and it's really fun. Like they just like wobble around as like little wooden dolls. It's adorable. We have a game coming out. We have a game coming out in a couple months called Fission Superstar X that we're working with.
I've actually seen that game recently. Where did I see it?
Maybe you saw the trailer or something.
Nope,
that game has gorgeous
Somebody
art.
sent it to me a few days ago, or last month.
Yeah, that game has gorgeous art.
It was probably Eric.
Yeah, that guy is super talented. Very interesting. And then I think the last project that I should plug is Precipice, which is a turn-based strategy game that's set during the Cold War, and you and your opponent play as the U.S. and the USSR.
Oh, that could be fun too.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a lot less about war, and it's a lot more about like politically sabotaging your opponent. It's fascinating.
So that should be fun. I'd like to see Anodyne 2 and probably that one.
Yep.
Just to be weird people.
And yeah, Anodyne 2 is that it's very, very interesting. Yeah. It's been fun working with them.
Okay. What projects, going backwards, what projects have you personally worked on aside from Eximius? We already know about
projects I worked on. I helped work on the Lucius 3 launch.
Ooh, you know what? That's another game I was looking at a long time ago.
Yeah, Lucius 3. I helped work on. Oh gosh, I can't remember a lot of them now because I get so many. And the Slack messages just like disappear after a while. We're working with Tales of Maj'Al currently, which is a game that's already out and has been out for a very long time. It's a classic roguelike. We're helping them out. I can't think of other games that have shipped recently that I was a part of.
I do want to see that one you were talking about a little while ago. Lucius 3.
Yeah, Lucius 3. Yep. That game's coming out.
I would
soon.
love to see that. I haven't played that or Lucius 2, and I'd really like to get my hands on them.
Yeah,
see
Lucius
if Eric's
3,
got either of them.
It came out on December 13th.
I think Steam lists the 18th, but close enough for government work. I think. Is that right?
It says that it was released on Steam on the 13th.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, you're right. My bad. Yeah, I gotta bug Eric and see if he's got a copy of that running around. Or you can bug him. Either one.
Oh, there was a big game that we worked on recently.
Which one?
I can't remember. It was like a Smash like.
I don't think I got that one.
Yeah, I can't remember. Can't remember anymore. It's fine.
Or if I did get a copy, I didn't bother with it. Because it's really not. I'm not really a big Smash Brothers fan, so.
I got you.
Derp, 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 derp. No, not that.
I will have to leave now.
All right. Actually, we're going to wrap this up here anyway. We're pushing 3 hours. I do appreciate you coming, Devin. If there's anything left from, if there's anything coming up from, any questions from the chat? How about a few comments from you while they're doing that, Kitty? Do you have any comments at this point?
No. I'm absolutely delighted that Devin took his time to hang out with us. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right.
You're very welcome. Someone asks, will IndieBros ever develop their own game? We're not really super interested in developing our own games right now. Our team is relatively small and also focuses mainly on people that are like marketing people. So we don't really have the in-house studio to really start developing our own game. I mean, like maybe like way far down the line if we like really like change up stuff, but I don't think that you'll see that anytime soon at all. I don't think Eric or Josh are interested in pursuing that anytime soon.
Okay. Tom, in answer to your question, we don't get to see Lord Crocus Squirrel fail today. This one here was set up entirely for this interview, and I've actually had a lot of fun with it.
So it's an interesting topic.
It is. It is an interesting topic. It's an interesting set of topics. We've had lots of little fun stuff. Yeah, I will be making up for it soon. Yeah. I will make up.
People like to watch.
They like to watch me
fail
get
in
slaughtered
games.
in video games. It's brilliant. And I don't necessarily do that. Yeah, this stream's gone on quite a bit longer than I thought it was going to. I do appreciate you coming, Devin. Thank you very much. We've got.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
And maybe we do this again. Maybe we'll do this one. Maybe we'll do this again sometime when we get further down the line.
Yeah, maybe.
I gotta pick up Eric. I gotta pick on Eric again. We gotta get him back on for some other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And please send our best regards to Eric and Joshua too, and keep up with the good work. IndieBros are awesome.
Yeah, I'll let them know. I'm happy to be I'm happy to be working for some of the good guys in the industry. You know.
Yeah.
And they're actually very rare to find anyway. There are some people that just. There's some people that make me want to just grab them and throttle them.
I think what my experience with the IndieBros is that people who work there are very interesting people. It's kind of, you want to sit with them and chat. It's like, suck it up. suck all the blood like a vampire. I want to ask more questions. I want to know more. Tell me more about this. Let's talk about that. And I think this is awesome.
Well, I don't think we're going to keep you from your classes. I don't know if you have any afternoon classes, but we'll let you get back to those.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for having me.
Not a problem. Let's do it again sometime.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right, everybody. I think we're about done here. We're way over time. But we will see you at another point sometime in the future. As of right now, I'm expecting there will be probably a larger stream to kind of catch up a little bit for the last couple of weeks that we've between weather and other stuff that we haven't been able to do much with, and maybe another stream so at some other point during the week or next week sometime. All right then. It looks like yeah, it looks like dude logged off. All right then. So don't forget we now have a Subscribestar account. If you haven't turned up for that, do feel free to go over there because they've actually got themselves some funding to do all the things. Or excuse me, they got a bank that will take them regardless, or a payment processor that'll take them regardless of circumstances. So that's going to be good. I can't wait to. I'm waiting to see the day that Patreon shuts down, because that's probably going to be a thing here before too awful long. Good night. Don't drink and drive. Yes, please don't drink and drive. I'd hate to have to be mad at the freaking audience.
Yeah.
Don't forget, if you like the content, please subscribe. Make sure you comment, because comments help in the algorithm. I have not added cards to this stream. I will probably do that a little later on, because I have heard that cards actually look really good to the algorithm. Don't forget to drop by that GoFundMe over there, and if you can if you can't, well, spread the word. The same thing goes for the channel, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff, all down in the description there. You can go and spread words. That's always good.
You're babbling.
What? Yes, I know I'm babbling. Okay. So, between now and the next time we see ya, be safe, be sane,
and let's make games fun again. See ya.
See ya. All right. Let's do that. All right. And don't forget the Vanishing Kitty. The Flying Ninja Squirrels. Rah! Crunch. That's always fun. And please stand by.